Well, look, you are not just the youngest councillor in New South Wales at the moment, and of course, there are plenty of councillors and mayors across the state. You are, as far as records go, the youngest ever councillor in New South Wales. Why'd you get into local government politics anyway? Because it's something that I guess maybe isn't typically associated with, our broad age group.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think it really stems from when kids are in high school and we want to think about what we do in the future. A lot of people have their passions already set out. I wasn't sure what I liked to do, but I loved volunteering in the community. I loved community service. And I had a really passionate local member of parliament. Back when I was in school, it was Katrina Hodgkinson, then Steph Cook. And so Steph got me really involved in politics. I actually went and did some work experience with her. And after that, I immediately dived straight into politics. So once local government elections came up, I thought, what better way to get involved in my community and serve than stick my hand up on council?
And then just go through that experience from the last election, right? As you were able to do all that campaigning, and then of course you eventually found out that you were one of those successful councillors. What was just that like for you?
Oh, look, it is. I went into that election not expecting to get elected. When you're 18 years old, you're not expecting everyone to think that you've got everything to know about the community. But one of my biggest drivers that I wanted to get elected to council is the age gap that we had for representing. With all due respect to my fellow councillors, the second youngest councillor and the youngest councillor on our council, Cootamundra Gundagai before me, turned 50 when I got elected. So that is a 32-year age gap that we just were not covering from the minimum of when you can get elected to when you can now. So running for election, I wasn't expecting to be elected, but the community put their faith in me. I was one of 9 councillors elected. And when the time came around this time, it's like, of course I'm going to run again. I was committed when I was 18 years old. There's nothing that's changed now. And what we've seen is more and more young people want to get involved in local government. They want to get involved with state government and get involved with federal. And if it's just, I remember when I ran, I had a lot of young people reach out to me across the electorate and say, Logan, thank you so much for running. I've now seen a candidate that I want to run for, but also they said, I want to get involved too now. Can you tell me how I can go and get involved with our community groups? And that's what we need, leaders standing up.
So just for those who I guess are unaware in terms of Cootamundra Gundagai, and we'll get into more the demergers and all that talk shortly. It has been, of course, a much shortened term than usual, given, the last elections were December 2021, meant to be September 2020. Really, what have you been able to, I guess, get done in that, relatively shortened term? And I think you would have only just finished up your final meetings as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. On the topic of meetings, we had our last council meeting last Tuesday. But for some people, they think that's it. All councils do is come to meetings, but it's not. It's a full-time job we have in the background where, quite frankly, we're paid pennies for. We've calculated it here. It's $34 a day that we get paid for. Now, we're not in it for the money, but we give a lot of time to it. And speaking of time, like you said, unusual shorter term, 2.5 years is a very short time to try and get some stuff done. We've had the demerger plague us. And when I got elected to council, we were not under an inquiry. However, when I got elected, we had some opposition in the chamber, will say, that was able to get through a second inquiry, which led into a third inquiry, and that's where we are today. But however, during that time, I've been able to secure $1 million for Annie Pyers Drive and fixing that road to the dog on the tucker box. I've been able to launch the Cootamundra Youth Hub, utilising space in our old hospital, meaning that we have a place for youth in Cootamundra to go to. I've had 2 youth mayors since me and a very strong youth council that's working diligently. We've also seen record-breaking floods in Cootamundra. So with my roles in my volunteering, I also was a council representative to look after the recovery after floods and look at paving a way. So I've also looked and made sure that we're going to have new flood studies brought in, especially for our villages, which are neglected a lot. We're in a regional community. Our towns can get a flood study as soon as after a flood. We've got villages that have never had one in ever, but they get flooded too, and they lose a lot. That's particularly where our farmers are. So what I've been very proud of is I've been able to get some flood studies going underway for the villages in Gundagai, and we've got some coming for Cootamundra. And in 2.5 years, that's some stuff that we can smash out easily in the next term as well.
Yeah, and well, all things go to plan. There's another 4 years coming up after this. Who knows? Maybe another virus will come along. Let's hope not. In terms of this merger and demerger talk, and I was speaking with Greens MLC Amanda Conn about it yesterday, right? This is something that has continued to be, talked about by locals, and I mean both for Cootamundra, Gundagai, and right across areas where there were mergers. It has just continued to be an issue since 2016. What has been the steps around that? Because as I understand it, there was some level of possibility that things could have been resolved by now, and maybe there wouldn't be this merged council election. What exactly has been going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we saw when I got elected to council was a failed attempt at demerging our council. So the platform that I ran on, as well as our current mayor, who was not mayor at the time, but he ran on uniting the council and getting the job done. And that's been our job since the get-go. What we then had was a surprise for a second attempt at a demerger, which has led into the third attempt with the current minister. The second attempt, believe it or not, I did not think we had a chance. And when Minister Tuckerman, at the time, of course, we know Minister Tuckerman was the administrator for the Hilltops Council. And I thought, if she administrated the council right next door, she would not be demerging us. To my surprise and losing a bet, I had to eat my hat. But she announced the demerger for us. Now, we had a roadway, or roadmap, some people might want to call it as well, to where will be completed by March 2023. However, that government lost government, and we had a new minister come in. Mr. Honig came in and said that 218cc, legislation put in by his party when they were in opposition, said that 218cc did not provide a legal pathway. Now, we were quite obviously shocked by that, saying, it was your party in opposition that brought that. The then government at the time accepted that. And, we feel like party politics is being played. To Ministers Honig's respect, he brought in 225cc, which does provide a clear pathway. Now, what we had to do with that is provide a financial sustainability plan on how the two councils will survive into the future post-demerger, and a demerger plan as well that outlines what we do. So we hired some experts in the field, Peter Teggett, highly regarded in local government, and he just went in front of the Boundaries Commission the other day to outline why he believes that Cootamundra Gundagai can be demerged into the former shires. But that's been a lot of work that's happened in the background. It's not stuff you see in the council chambers, on the council meetings, broadcast. This is stuff that we've been doing for months in the background, planning what's going to happen. The unfortunate truth is demergers are expensive. It's not popular. And of course, it's going to have a lot of administrative costs. And so with that, we've had to take into account how these communities will survive. And I'll be quite frank with you, Leo, to make sure we succeed, we have to cut costs. So I've been strong against, we councillors should not be paid more unless we deliver surplus after surplus after surplus. But if we deliver deficits, we must not give pay rises. We might just hand out money, like it's free to give to everyone. We've got to be conservative with our spending, and that's what we've had to be. And that's what we need to continue to be, especially should we demerge. These councils really need to be strong in conserving our money.
And just on those arguments for the demergers, I think, and look, we think we were both pretty young when they did happen relatively. But I think the big thing around getting rid of a lot of these smaller councils back in after the 2012 elections, when it came in 2016, was that they were not financially sustainable, or they were just too small. They were representing just too little people. They weren't able to hold themselves together, and maybe a bigger super council might be able to do that. Really, and I know you did touch on it just before, but is it really something that is viable to demerge? Because you'd hate to have, in another term's time, a talk of, a remerger because the newer or the reformed smaller councils have failed or anything like that.
Well, look, it's a great question to pose there, Leo, and it's really important that we have this conversation. And one of the big things is, how big are our councils needing to be? And I'm talking about how we structure them and how we run them, but I'm also talking about your councillors. We see a lot of councils having near the maximum amount of councillors. So out here, the maximum is 11 councillors you can have on council. We see that with Hilltops. With Cootamundra Gundagai, we have 9 councillors. Now, that's for a population of 11,000, rounding up. And, it's ridiculous. There's so many people representing so few people. We also, with Gundagai, with their area, 3,000 people, with a council that usually consisted of 7 people. So with this financial sustainability plan and the demerger pathway that we produced to the minister, we recommended that both councils reduce their numbers of councillors to save money on that front. So Gundagai, it is recommended that they go from what we have now as 9 down to 5. And for Cootamundra, it goes down to 7. Now, that's in good reflection when we have a look at the population of Cootamundra, which is about 7,600, and Gundagai, which is about the 3,000 to 4,000 range. And that has more accuracy at representing your area. Now, when it comes to the question of, after a demerger, we cannot go back to looking at needing to be merged again because councils are too small. But we see with councils like Coolamundra, where the entire LGA are villages, what we consider villages, but it is effectively ran as a community. But when we have two communities that are vastly different at different education spheres and different sporting areas, in different economies, different demographics, like Cootamundra and Gundagai, we have that struggle where we cannot unite the two fronts. We're 40 minutes away, and we cannot, when the council was merged, it could not be seen to have a depot in the middle or a depot in only one area without cutting the services to other areas. So when we look at these councils, we need to look about, unfortunately, centralising our administration offices and our production lines and our civil services. But the biggest thing is we need to cut costs because local government does not make money. Gone are the days where it's just rates, rubbish, and roads. There's a lot of work going into it. We've got emergency services we have to pay for, which we saw with the ESL increase, that councils had to bear more costs. And we see with the changing environments that councils are having to adapt rapidly, and it's costing the ratepayer. Without assistance from the current government, the state government and the federal government, without financial assistance grants being adjusted, councils are going to continue to suffer because we do not, particularly in the regions, do not have the revenue raising that metropolitan councils do. And they can survive with charging people for fines or for parking. We can't do that out here. So we've got to survive with our base and support our regional communities.
Just quickly, one more on this issue. Have you had, and I get, as again I said, right, there's been a lot of talk about this since the mergers happened right across the state, but have you had much public consultation recently about support or opposition to such a proposal? I know that there have been various referendums and polls held for various issues across the state at different times, but what is, I guess, the public telling you? And might I add, of course, as you said, right, the Cootamundra side has a fair bit more population if it comes to just sheer numbers asking for one thing.
Look, I can tell you, Leo, in my campaign, from the Cootamundra side, they just said, get on with the job. We're sick of our councillors trying to split up this council. We're electing you to the Cootamundra Gundagai Regional Council. Get on with the job. That was the message that I got from my Cootamundra constituents. Over in Gundagai, it was a complete opposite. We got there and said, you are here to serve us. We want you to demerge. So there's two very strong fronts coming from us as councillors right from the get-go. This has been in the previous term where, again, like you said earlier, we were both a bit younger than what we are now to be on council. But we see now, as we've gotten older, the detriments of our merged council. And what we've majorly seen is in Gundagai, the percentage is over 80. I can't remember the exact percentage now. The last one I remember was 83% of residents in Gundagai wanted to demerge. That was the last figure that I remember. In Cootamundra, it was in the 70s. We especially saw it when we unfortunately had a Boundaries Commission, and we had a lot of people coming out saying they do not have faith in this merged council and they want to return to the previous boundaries. Now, that was with the last inquiry when Minister Tuckman was in charge before she made the announcement, and we had people coming out to the public inquiries. We had multiple in Cootamundra and multiple in Gundagai. With Minister Honig, he already knows the facts, he already knows the figures. This was all done last year. So he's actually referring to a public inquiries based in Sydney, where the Boundaries Commission are consulting special people that they are inviting in, that they want to, ask questions to and in a form interrogate to see why they think a demerger is suitable or why it's not. But the community has been very vocal that they want this delivered. We can't commit to any long-term projects. We're stifled by guidelines. It means we can't actually hire permanent senior management roles. We can't hire a general manager at the moment. We can only hire interims for 12 months maximum, and we have to find ways to keep them if they're effective. We can't hire deputy general managers. We've got one, and we've got one who's looking at retiring soon. And the problem is as well, is when we're in a council that's looking at constantly splitting, we can't hire managers. We've reduced our managers from 13 to 7 out of a cost-saving measure. But now we're looking at, out of our 7 managers, 5 of them are acting and cannot be recruited permanently due to this issue. We cannot commit to long-term projects because of an undetermined guideline or timeline on when this council will be either CGRC or the two former shire boundaries. So our community wants us to get the job done. The demerger is stifling progress. We need to get it done.
All right, just finally, on another thing, you're a member of the National Party. I know they don't endorse for local government elections, and you're running as, I think, unaffiliated on the ballot. Just in your view, do you think that party politics has a place in local government?
Look, it's a very interesting question. When I stand out here and say, like, I'm a proud member of the National Party, I think National Party should be involved from a grassroots level. So we should be involved in local government. Local government is the most connected form of government. It's right in the local level. People aren't in there for the money. People are in there to serve the community. And it's constantly rotating compared to parliaments where you've got people who are set there who are going to be there for a couple of years and rotating, and there's the party politics in there. But then you get the counterpart where I strongly believe where party politics should stay out of local government is because the beauty of local government is it's a council, it's people coming together all for the same reasons. They might have varying views, but they're all there for their specific town, not for a party policy, not for a platform. Once you bring that in, you immediately have group tickets. And group tickets are a dangerous kind because it stifles voting and it clearly shows where people will vote in the chamber. If you've got, for example, a blue party ticket and a red party ticket and then a yellow party ticket, all those people are going to make deals to make sure that their coloured ticket is going to be the one that's most dominant in that council chamber. And that's what stifles progress in our regional communities, in our local government. We see it in places like Queanbeyan and Palorane, where party politics have stifled it. We see it up in places like Coffs in Newcastle, where party politics are so strong that then people form super independent groups to throw out parties, and it creates no confidence in our state and federal governments. So no, I don't think they should have a very influential role, especially out here in the regions. And then we see places like in Junee where there was no election held. And so anyone who's endorsed by a party immediately gets a party platform in there. So we've actually seen, I was shocked to see it, but Shoes Farms and Fishers have actually elected someone. There was no election there, but they've endorsed a candidate. Now, with my party politics, like you said, I'm a member of the Nationals. It's no secret. However, when I got elected, I put up a very strong Labor man as the mayor, Charlie Sheehan. I've got great respect for Charlie Sheehan. His grandfather was a member for what is now Cootamundra, but member for Burrinjuck. And Burrinjuck, he was a member for many years. There's many streets named after the Sheehans, and they've been dedicated to the country. You remove the party politics, and they are people who want to serve their communities. That's what we need in local government, not a party platform, not different colours, and not funding. We need people who are passionate in the communities.
Yeah, you mentioned Junee, which is obviously a really interesting example off my head. Two Nats members endorsed, elected there as well, as you say, right? Shooters Fishers got up, but it is interesting, right? Because the Nationals are probably the largest party Australia-wide that doesn't explicitly endorse anywhere for local government. And I know, right? Your election branding, it's kind of pretty obvious who you might be linked with, right? And as you say, right, you're not hiding that. Anyone can check membership on the New South Wales Electoral Commission website. But like, if Nats were endorsing, would you be, concerned about having their name next to your ballot, next to your name on the ballot, even if you weren't necessarily following their whole statewide platform on council?
Look, the beauty about politics and political parties is that while you're a member, you still have your views. And that's important for us to remember. And when you go to an election, you shouldn't be voting for a party. You should be voting for the person that will best represent your electorate. And so whenever I go to an election, I also look and I see, do I believe in this person properly representing me? I don't look at the party affiliation next to them. For myself, if the Nationals did endorse, I am a very strong member of the Nationals, like you said, and it's very clear in my branding. But I'd still have to argue that as much as I think they should be involved at a grassroots level, I don't know if I'd go with being endorsed by them, because when we get that party politics, that encourages when someone sees that. So let's say, hypothetically, in the CGRC, I run as a Nationals and everyone else is unaligned or independents. It creates a sense of you need to group as independents against a party. And then what we'll see is Labor goes, well, if Nationals has elected someone, then Labor should endorse someone. And the Liberals will try and make that push. You know, they would have made a bigger push this year if they didn't forget that the elections were on. But, you know, with all jokes aside, when we bring those party politics, you immediately get that branding, which can be good for elections and it can be also bad for your appearance sometimes as well, based on people's personal choices for elections. But it also creates that branding inside the council chamber that if you vote with one block, you cannot support the other block, the opposition, as people would typically call it, because it becomes another government chamber. And again, we see this strongly in Queanbeyan and Palarain, where it's a very Labor-dominant council, and so everything is based off party politics there. But then you see places like Temora Shire, where there are a mix of party affiliations there and different economic beliefs, yet they have got a huge amount of candidates this year. When CGRC was first formed, 28 candidates. At the last election that I ran, we had 12. At this election, we have 11. Temora's got so much more and such a smaller population. But then you look at Junee, and again, they've got roughly the same population as Cootamundra. They're right next to Wagga Wagga, and they couldn't even get enough people to run. And that's the biggest concern we're seeing with local governments is when people look at saying, well, I don't want to vote anymore because of these parties, it removes the essence of democracy and it removes our governments. So to come back to your question, while I am a very strong member of the Nationals and it's very well known, if they gave me the option to run, I probably wouldn't run as a Nationals. I'd continue running as unaligned because party politics should not define what you do in that chamber.
All right, really appreciate it, Councillor. Thank you very much for your time and best of luck with the upcoming elections.
Thanks, Leo. I appreciate the time.